Welcome to the How Soccer Explains Leadership podcast, where we explore leadership principles through the lens of the beautiful game.
Welcome back to How Soccer Explains Leadership. Thanks again for being a part of this conversation. I'm Phil Dark, your host, and with me again is my brother, my teammate, Paul Jobson. And today we have another fun conversation where we are going to be talking with Amanda Vandervoort. She has all kinds of stuff. I don't have time. It would take the whole episode to go through her resume, but we're going to talk with her about her story, just have a fun conversation about soccer, where we're at, where we've been, where we're going, and she has a lot to say about all of that. We're going to talk about how all of it has to do with leadership, because that's what we do here. Paul, how you doing, man?
Doing great, Phil. Man, I'm excited about another great interview. Excited to talk to Amanda today with all of her experience and just learn a lot today. So I'm excited about it. I feel we've been knocking out a lot of interviews lately. So I feel like we're seeing a lot of each other, Phil. It's a good thing, man. So it's good to see you again.
It is. You're a good-looking man, so it's a good thing for us to be able to just hang out, And
good for
tonight,
audio, not so good for our YouTube viewers, though.
Well, we can say it about each other here because no one's looking at us, so it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they're on YouTube, they could judge for themselves. But hey, put in the show notes, put in the comments what you think of that, whether you agree or disagree. Is Paul a good-looking man? I think it's going to come like 98% yes. So, and then Marcy might vote something, I don't know, but one of your kids, they'll come in and be like, oh, it depends on the day. But, that's all right. So, tonight I have a big play-in game. We've been talking about my team, probably the most underperforming team I've had. They're incredibly talented, but it's too good of a culture on our team, I think, is the problem. They just hang out. They like hanging out. They don't have that desire to, it doesn't matter if they win or lose. They just love hanging out with each other, and that's a beautiful thing, and I want them to win. So just praying for that big win tonight, then make a run in playoffs and just be the 16 seed that surprises everyone. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, that is, something we can talk about later, because today we do have Amanda with us. And Amanda, how you doing?
I'm great. It's great to be here, you guys. Thanks.
Yeah, this interview is a long time coming because we talked. We initially met on Clubhouse. And for those of you who are part of the Clubhouse soccer conversation, that didn't last very long. So we know that wasn't, that was a long time ago, too. It seems like, the time goes so fast. It wasn't that long
I'd almost
ago.
Forgotten about that totally,
yeah.
Phil.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
But it was great. It was great.
Oh, yeah, it was.
It was engaged. People were honest and authentic. I love Clubhouse. I thought it was it was before I was at the USL even. I was in Tucson, Arizona. I remember exploring Clubhouse and meeting new people on that platform. I just thought it was so neat and open.
It was great. And, in this conversation probably wouldn't be happening right now if it wasn't for that. That one you came on was one of my favorites because that one was like Moe Du, and he's like going, I got to get Ale on this. So he's texting Bedoya, and they're coming on. And then you came on. Diego came on. That was one of the ones that connected with Diego, and now we're good friends. So it's like that's the beauty of what the internet can do. There's shadow sides of it, obviously, but I agree. It was just really good conversations that just flattened any celebrity status, it was just, hey, let's talk, and no one's seeing each other, and it's just a good conversation where you can be real with each other, which was really cool. Ironically, the Be Real app probably is the least real app out there. I think Clubhouse was a very real app, and it still is, I guess. It's still going on, but I don't think a lot of people are going on it with at least the soccer community. But anyway, I want to hear, about your story. And a lot of people don't know who you are, Amanda, and a lot of people listening are probably wondering what your story is if they do know you. And so right now, you are the president of the USL Super League. It oversees all the entire USL women's pathway, which is pretty cool. We're going to talk about that later. But can you talk about how you got there and just your story and how you developed your passion for soccer, for leadership, and just how you ended up with the USL?
Yeah. And you know what, I appreciate even the concept of this and what you've brought to the idea of leadership through the lens of soccer and vice versa, right? Because there's so many things I think I've learned all along my journey that just connect in every podcast you guys have, in every Clubhouse room that we were in. So now I played soccer growing up in Arizona. I went to the University of Wyoming. I was a goalkeeper at the University of Wyoming, and then went to go on and coach for a number of years. I was a coach in New Jersey and then the head women's soccer coach at NYU before I moved into the business of professional women's soccer and helped launch WPS out of the San Francisco office at that time. So, I've been in the game a long time, from player and coach onto the executive or management side of the business. I did women's soccer, women's pro soccer for 3 years. And then I went to Major League Soccer. I was at MLS as the vice president of fan engagement. I was there almost a decade at MLS, which I loved. And then I decided I wanted to work in international football and I wanted to be back in the women's game. So I moved to Europe. I worked for FIFPRO, which is the Global Players Union out of Amsterdam. I was there until COVID brought me back to the United States, and this opportunity to build women's professional league, but an entire ecosystem, youth to pro, for the USL from the ground up. So moved to Tampa, Florida, and that is where I am today. Along the way, I've also stayed committed to coaches. My journey took me to being the president of United Soccer Coaches in 2016. So, I'm absolutely committed to the coaching industry and coaching professionals, the development of coaches. And I've also done a lot of work in women's football development around the world. I was a consultant for FIFA for about 6 or 7 years, and I did programming in the Caribbean, in India, and Tanzania, across Europe, just really helping build women's soccer around the world, professional to amateur ranks. So yeah, hopefully, what we're building here at the USL and the Super League kind of takes in a lot of that knowledge and learning, and I can use it to apply, for the future of soccer here.
Yeah, and you have, that is so much there. And the one thing I saw in your bio too that my daughter would be really mad if I didn't ask is you're an avid baker. And
Indeed.
you do cakes and, for sporting events, parties, birthdays, and weddings. Like, that's pretty big time. And so what is your favorite thing to bake? And then we're going to put that recipe in the show notes if it's public.
Well, see, here's the thing, Phil. I have this dream of not necessarily what my favorite thing to bake is, but my future favorite thing is championship cakes. Like, what I believe is missing from a championship celebration in sports is in the locker room after the game, a custom cake for the team to celebrate with, right? You get champagne, you get beer, whatever the sponsored elements are. You can create a sponsored cake left and right, but make it real customized to the winning team. I think it'd be amazing. So this is my dream. This is the Vandy cakes, the long-term ambition. One day,
I love it.
Celebration cakes in the locker room.
Amanda, I think you probably have everybody on board except the facilities people, right? Yeah. Everybody but the facilities people are like, we've learned how to block everything off for the champagne and the beer, but cake, man, that just gets in you. It gets all over you.
Yeah. A carpeted locker room would probably be trouble. But...
You just gotta, like you said, customize. You can make it without the frosting. There's ways to do it. There's ways to do it.
I do cake without frosting.
I know. I'm just throwing it out there. We do cakes without everything, it seems, at this point. But, I don't like them, but they have them. But anyway, so I love that. I love that idea. So one of the things that I always love talking about with people is, and I'd love to hear from you, because you've been, leader, like now. You're the president. Obviously, that's the highest title. Typically in an organization. Obviously, there's people that you're working with and a board and all that goes along with it. But what did you learn when you were in those positions back, maybe with the MLS or other things, where you were really learning to lead by following? What did you learn in those positions, and whether you were on a team or otherwise, that you're using now?
Yeah, that's interesting. Learning to lead by following. I don't know that I would describe my experience as learning to lead by following, but learning to lead by listening and watching, because we're all leaders, right? Whether you're the president, whether you're the social media coordinator, we're all leaders in our own way. And so I think sitting at the table, this idea of I think I lived through that ideal that we're all leaders and we all have unique skill sets. I think we're starting, specialization is really important to the overall success of an organization, and what you bring to the table matters. And it could be your area of specialty, but it could be your experience and knowledge. So for me, let's just take Major League Soccer. When I was at the table at MLS, I was running social media for a long time there. So, I had that area of specialty that I could bring to the conversation. But at the same time, I was a woman in male business and men's professional soccer. And so I maybe brought a little bit of a different context or understanding of the female fan or women in business in soccer, that I could represent with authenticity at the table. And I always thought that was important, but then also listening to that experience and context of others, because that's how we as an organization are stronger, I think, is by listening and learning from everyone else.
Yep.
And you mentioned, even as you were talking, all the different places that you've been and all the consulting you did really around the world and trying to develop the women's game. How have those cultures impacted your leadership? I mean, you're sitting at the table, at MLS and you're a woman at the table and bringing these amazing insights that a lot of these guys probably aren't going to have, but you're also all over the world sitting at tables with other cultures and different things like that. How has that influenced your leadership?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think I do, gosh, my head is spinning with like, okay, what was it like in Jamaica? What was it like in India? What was it like in England? What was it like in the Netherlands?
Just for
and it's
maybe
so
to help
different.
clarify. Yeah. Just to clarify too, like you're sitting at a table in India or in Jamaica, you sit at the table, it's a little bit different culture. So you're probably sitting there and having to present yourself a little bit differently and having to listen a little bit differently and having to take in the cultural differences of how you can't just run in even as an American and say, well, this is how you do it, right? You've got to listen and things like that. But is it difficult?
But you don't last long.
Yeah, right. You're not getting invited back to the table. But were there some challenges in that? I mean, take us through some of that. I think it's very interesting and how different people lead.
It is. I agree with you. I think, Paul, like that's such an important point, is like understanding and listening to the other people in the room and the culture and taking your time with it. I do think for me, when I was maybe earlier days in my career, I wanted to rush to a conclusion, or I wanted to solve big problems early without maybe the full context or the full process that it took to get there. So, in a lot of those countries I just described, if I was doing a course with FIFA in Jamaica, or I was doing a course in India or something, like they were short courses, like 1 week or 2 weeks. And you wanted to just like share everything you knew and hope that they would take it and like build women's soccer, in their country and adapt as necessary. But I think as I've learned and grown a bit, it's more about me adapting like to exactly what pieces of information are going to help them on their journey. So it's like meeting them where they are and their women's soccer journey specifically, but then also like layering over, culture, like how people operate in different contexts is, it does look a lot different, and in the boardroom in Jamaica than the boardroom in the Netherlands, and just even like systems of operation. So you're gonna have to like learn to work within that and learn to bring your own ideas and insight, but complement it with theirs too, because there's so much that we can learn and take back from these other cultures to make us stronger too. And I think that's an important thing that I've taken away over time, and having the benefit and luxury of being in different cultures and contexts, is that like there's no one right way to do things. And for us, I think as Americans, like this confluence of countries and ethnicities and genders, and like confluence of that is what makes us so strong.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's important that people hear what you're saying. I would just say, hey, go back and listen to that again. There's a lot of really good stuff in there, and a lot of it just comes down to, a lot of times you're being brought in as an expert, and you're like, they just want me to tell them everything that they need to hear, and I want to do that. But a lot of what you're saying is you actually got to sit down and listen. Right. Yeah. And I think that's an important piece for people to catch on to.
Yeah. And listening is active. Like sometimes we think we're not doing anything when we're listening. But for me, I've learned, I think over the years, that actually like listening is an active skill to take it in, to take notes, to make sure that you're hearing what people are saying.
Yeah. As you're talking through some of that, you're talking through the different cultures you've talked with, and even in the role that you're in right now, you've kind of developed, who you are as a person, who you are as a leader. But what is your why? Why do you do what you do? Why do you do how you do things? What is your personal why? If you have one, can you share that with us?
Yeah. So my why developed when I developed it much later, when I like kind of realized what my why was. But ultimately, soccer for me has been, as a youth player, I felt that soccer created an environment that was like safe and healthy and pushed me to be better, like a better version of myself. And so, fast forward now into my, 40 plus years, and my North Star, my why is really creating, like, positively affecting people's lives through soccer. Like if I can do that, then I'm fulfilled. So when I think of like the jobs I'm going to take, or I think about projects I'm going to undertake, where I'm going to spend my time, that is like number one. Am I positively affecting people's lives through sport, through soccer in particular? And then also for me, if we're talking about like values, like, am I going to have fun doing it? We talk a lot about soccer for kids, for girls or for boys, they're playing in their youth. And we always say, make sure they're having fun. But I think that concept is important to us as humans throughout our lives. And we need to enjoy our work and our kind of livelihood as much as living our why through it. So I think they complement each other and they're both equally important.
I like that. I don't think we hear that enough on here about like just having fun and enjoying the moment. And Marcy, my wife, and I talk a lot about just wanting to enjoy the people that we work with, too. And if you can create that for yourself and you can control, if you feel like you have control of that, that's really big. It is, there's a lot to enjoying the folks that you're around and the things that you're doing, for sure. So appreciate that insight for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think we talk about that a lot. We talk about having fun, and it's important to have fun. And we talk about, if you enjoy your work, you'll never work a day in your life, and all these like pithy, cliche statements. And yeah, they're true, but a lot of people don't think that. They're like, well, I'll have fun when I'm not working. I'll have fun when I'm, and I think that goes to, you see that, and if they're doing that in life, then that's what they're teaching the kids, and it's just kind of going into the kids as well. Work is just work, and you can't enjoy it. It's just work. It's just the thing you got to go to every day, and to be able to invite the kids into, if you do actually see it that way, and it should be that way, right? We should be passionate about what we're doing, and be able to give that to others too, as a gift to those that we're leading. Going back. What's that?
I love that.
So,
yeah.
What was a defining moment for you? You talked about earlier in your career, playing youth, going to play at, goalkeeper fraternity, by the way. So that's something that we got that a little bit of crazy in us if we were keepers.
I am definitely the odd person out in this.
Yeah. So
all of a sudden, they're quick to admit they're not goalkeepers when there's goalkeepers in the room.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm the oddball in a room of goalkeepers. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody would say you're the oddball in this group, but that's all right. Especially with me. I'm not going to speak for Amanda there, but we talk about this. There's so much there. Well, what was one defining moment in your soccer career as a player, and why was it so impactful? What did you learn from it, and really how are you using that today?
Well, my soccer career, so I played. I was a player at the University of Wyoming. I was obviously the goalkeeper, as we just talked about. But my junior year, we were playing BYU in Utah, and early days in the game, I dove to the right. I missed it, but I ended up, because I missed the ball, I ended up landing on my shoulder, and I tore my AC joint, like pretty bad. Mm-hmm. And I refused to come out of the game. Well, kind of. I mean, my coach was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Really, I knew I wasn't. I was holding my arm by a thread. And by halftime, we were down 8-0. I at halftime, like, coach made the right call and took me off. So I was out then for, the rest of the season. And for me, I was the captain of the team, and I found that really hard. So for me, that was quite a defining moment, though, because it shaped almost what we were talking about earlier, right? Like, how do you think about leadership in different roles that you might have, whether you're in the boardroom or in the team environment? So now I became a captain from the bench, and it was really it was really hard. It was really hard, very competitive. I want to be on the field, but at the same time, you learn, to support others in a whole new way, and look at the game from a different, literally from a different angle, right? Like, I'm not looking at it from behind the defenders anymore. I'm looking at it from the sideline. So watching the game in a completely different way, but also like understanding my teammates in a different way and how to lead from behind.
Yeah.
I think I took that as a core learning from that experience. And, it was a hardship for me, but the road back and having to fight through injury and come back, for my final season, I think made me stronger. stronger overall. So yeah, I would say that was a defining moment in my playing career for sure.
It's becoming a theme that when we're asking this question of people, that their most defining moment was an injury.
I believe that.
And was the time, because that is, you realize, first of all, identity of, I'm more than a soccer player, first of all. And the other side of it is I can lead from the bench. I can be a part of this team. And it was interesting, just yesterday, one of my goalkeepers who's been hurt is now back to where she had a concussion, and she's on doing return to play protocol now. And she says, well, since I can't train today fully, do I need to come to practice? Which was just a crazy question to me, because I'm like, of course. I said, whether you're playing or not, you're part of this team, and you are an important part of this team. Everyone is an important part of the team, whether you're playing, whether you're on the bench, wherever you are. And that's something that I think is getting lost in today, because there's so many things going on, and a lot of times coaches don't require their injured players to come, which is just crazy to me. It's just like this foreign thing. And I think part of it is with a concussion, you're not able to sometimes come back out, whatever. But anyway, yeah, I love that, because I'm actually gonna share this with some of my players, because that right there is so important to hear for people out there when you're like, oh, I just got injured into the world, right? It's like, just change the perspective, right? That angle, that you will see life from different angles. You will see life from different perspectives. And so what does that look like? What is your role right now, where you're at? And I love that.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I can see, adversity, builds, can help if you approach it, with an open mind and an open heart, can certainly make us stronger. So yeah, it's interesting, the trend that's forming. I mean, you're asking athletes, right? So like your coaches or people in soccer. So you can imagine that trend goes through, but that's cool. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that story too, about your player asking that. And then what a teachable moment.
Oh, 100%. And that's what I love. I mean, I love having all this fresh on my mind all the time, because, you could respond very differently as a coach if you're sitting there going, I could say it differently as well, just so how you deliver the message too is a teachable moment for me and for her. So I think as coaches, we should be hopefully continually learning and continually saying, okay, this isn't, what it was like when we were kids, right? It's just a completely different world. And so how can we engage in that and still teach the same lessons that hopefully we learned playing? And on that note, what can you think of any other lessons that you learned playing, playing the game specifically, that you've used in your leadership? Like of the organizations you're working with now?
You know what I have stuck in my mind, and I'm not sure if this is going to answer your question directly, but it's it kind of goes to the other one about adversity, but it's also a lesson. So I'm going to go here.
Go with it. Go with it.
It's on my mind, and I
do it.
So when I was a kid, because now we're talking about youth soccer, right? When I was a kid, I was in Arizona, and I started playing soccer really late. And like I had one tuck at a season in the fifth grade with an AYSO team, which I love AYSO. I hated playing soccer when I was in the fifth grade, but then I was 13 and all my girlfriends were playing, and they're like, come out and play. So I went back and gave it a go. I couldn't kick snow off a rope, and I was not fit. So they threw me in goal, but then I got really competitive with it. So by the time I got to high school, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be the best. So, but I was terrible. And I was in Tucson, Arizona. There was no specialty training. I was a child with divorced parents with not a lot of money in the family. Like it was a real grind even to play. And one day I remember getting in the mail a flyer from Tony DeChico's Soccer Plus goalkeeper school. You guys might remember that from back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And still, but way back when Tony was running the camps. And I was like, this is it. I'm a goalkeeper. I need to go to goalkeeper school. Like, that's how you do. But I didn't have the money to do it. So I was like, all right, here's a situation. I want to be the best at this. I found a solution, but I can't afford it, which I'm sure a lot of players today are actually finding themselves in that position, given the cost of youth soccer. But back then I thought, all right, so here's what I'm going to do. I put together a campaign and I went door to door. And I raised $20, in my neighborhood. I went to there's a bunch of strip malls along this road, Tucson. And I went door to door in all the strip malls, and I would write down donated $20 and I put together this whole campaign, and I managed to raise enough money. It was, I don't know, a couple $100 and gas money for my mom to drive me, to San Diego or wherever. And I put together enough money to go to camp. But then I got there and I was like, oh man, I got to get home. So I made these necklaces. Like I'm out of clay, little clay balls. They look like little soccer balls. I'd pop them in the oven before I like, what's like a hemp, like little hemp, little necklaces that were super cool in the 90s. I thought at least they were cool in the 90s, and I could sell them for $5 each, like on the black market at Soccer Plus. And I was making a good little couple $100, right? So I found a way to fund like my own soccer ambitions, like just by being scrappy and figuring it out. And of course, writing them all thank you notes and making sure that I like came back to all those people who donated. And I told them how excited, what a great experience it was. And then the next year they came back to me and donated again. Are you going to soccer camp? Do you want to go again? So I did. I ended up going to 2 camps that year, and made the varsity soccer team in high school. We won a state championship. Eventually I got a college scholarship. And so for me, but it all kind of started back. That was a really changing moment in my life where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to figure out how to get it done. And I had to do it myself.
That there may be the most told story from this podcast, like of parents to their kids. I have no doubt this will be told in the dark house, maybe played in the dark house. I don't know about you, Paul, but that's my thinking on that.
It's
story.
gold. It's gold.
Yeah.
I mean, you're really kind of ahead of the times with name, image, and likeness before that was even a thing. You're like, hey, come on, but you were doing it to like really actually help you pay for things, not because you had money but wanted more money. You're like, I actually need help to get this done.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing story.
That is awesome.
I'll encourage people to put that on replay over and over again in front of their kids. I think it's awesome. I think of my kids going out and trying to sell rocks down the street. They're doing it just because they want to sell rocks, not because they want to go to soccer camp. But maybe now it's like, hey, you want to go to soccer camp? Like, go sell those rocks.
But I think, Paul, what it is it's a story of, it's a hurdle, it's a barrier, and so often kids are like, nope, can't do it because of X, Y, Z, and they even have the fundraiser. I think of a stack of books at my house that my kid still hasn't sold for his science camp or whatever, and it's if it's not easy, we say, well, can't happen, as opposed to, no, that's just every barrier. Almost every, I'm not going to say every, virtually every barrier can be overcome if you really want it enough. You might not have the talent to do something. That's a different conversation. But if it's just something that's money, or that's why I say never let money be the reason you don't do something. You can figure that out. If it's important enough, you can figure it out, and there will be people that will get behind it. And so I think that is something that's such a great lesson, because too often kids are like, nope, can't do it. Just because it's a cost or because it's in a place that I can't get to, whatever it may be. If you want it bad enough, it's something that you can raise that. You can go do stuff. But I love that. Thanks for sharing that. I'm very glad you shared that story.
Yeah.
You find those moments with everybody, with me even. Like, if there's something that you want bad enough, are you willing to figure out how to get it done, or do you really not want it that bad, so you actually change what you want? Right? You have a choice, right? Do you really want it? Figure out how to get it done, which is exactly what you did, Amanda. Or like, maybe I really don't want to be a great goalkeeper, so I'll do something else. And along your path, I mean, that's so it's inspiring, I think, to probably a ton of people. I noticed for me and a lot of other people too. Through your career, as a podcast on leadership that directs itself to coaches and players, was there one or two coaches in your career that really impacted you, and what lessons would you say he or she or they, all of them, put in front of you as an example in your leadership?
Well, I'm going to stick with the high school team because that's where we're at. And my high school, her name's Alicia Kinsler. She played at Santa Clara, and then she came to Tucson, Arizona, and took on this scrappy little soccer team, Sabino High School. And again, this is so my journey. I started again at 13. I was doing Soccer Plus in the summers. I was trying to figure out, my motivation was a college scholarship because I didn't have a lot of, money in my family. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. So that was also motivating me to do the Soccer Plus stuff. But Alicia took this group of kind of, I don't know, scrappy players. High school, it's not based on, it's just based on your geography, how you get thrown together in a high school team, right? And she brought this element to my game and to everyone on my team of, I would call it mental toughness or mental skills in a way that I think was outside the box, but it worked for us. So what we did, part of our team bonding early in the season, is we did Tai Chi as a team. And what ended up, we all we kind of used it to help us focus and kind of ground us before we would play a game. What ended up happening is we started doing it before warm-ups. We would, all 18 of us would go out on the pitch at midfield before the game, and we'd do 15 minutes of Tai Chi as a team. And the other team, I know every time the other team was like, what are these weirdos doing, out on the field doing Tai Chi? But for us, it became like this bonding, like focus our energies, ground us in the game, leave all the parents out, outside of, we're here together as this group, and we're really focused on like our body and how we're going to like perform. So that was my junior year in high school, and we won the state championship that year. And I remember being in Phoenix playing against Paradise Valley, this team in Phoenix we played against for state championship, walking onto the field and doing Tai Chi before the game. The stands, a bunch of people in the stands for a high school game. It was chock full. And I can literally remember the other team staring at us like, what are they doing? But we won the game. We won that year. And I think what Alicia brought to us was this element that, especially in high school, was so outside the box, but so critically important to the foundation, not only of me as a soccer player, but as me as a person throughout my entire life, that like becoming like comfortable in yourself and being able to focus and like cut out the junk, cut out the noise, was like, she brought that into my life, and I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I've done a little bit of research, Amanda, and I may be wrong, and please tell me if I am, but you just mentioned that your high school coach was a female, correct?
Yeah.
Am I also correct that your college coach was a female?
Yeah. Yes.
That is extremely rare. Did you ever have a male coach? I mean, I'm not making a big deal about this, but I kind of am, because I don't know how many people I've talked to that have had a female coach in high school, a female coach in college, because the trend now is there's so many male coaches coaching females. We're trying to get more women in the game, right, to coach the females. But you had a unique opportunity to have that female influence throughout your soccer career. Maybe talk about that a little bit. And I just kind of saw that and it stuck out to me. Maybe you've never even thought about it.
I definitely think about it, and I have had male coaches along the way for sure. But when I talk about the ones that had the biggest impact on me, I always lean into the women, whether it's Alicia or my college coach and more. Like I do tend to lean into that. I do feel like they impacted me in special ways that were beyond the X's and O's, whether it was them like just relating with me as women, as we go through like biological or physiological changes, to be able to talk to women about that throughout my career, or whether, they might, share an empathy with me around how I lead or how I engage in a team or group dynamic, just in a different way than some of my male coaches have. But again, you learn from all different genders we learn from everyone, right? So
I agree.
Different things from my male coaches that I'm as grateful for in my journey as well. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it is a unique privilege I've had to be coached by women. And now as a woman who coached, I definitely tried to reflect a lot of my coaching style and in things that they brought to me through my career. Yeah, for sure. And as a leader in business too. I mean, I have different connections with the women in my office too, that I know it's one of those, if you can see her, you can be her moments for me every day. And I know that when I walk in the office, the impact of being a female president of an organization is it's meaningful. It's meaningful, not just, I'm in a position of privilege, but I think meaningful to the people around me, both men and women.
Yeah. Well, I just found that very unique. I mean, as I coached with my wife for a very long time, and it was more times than not that a player would come on campus and say, "Well, I've never played." I mean, female players, I've never played for a female coach. And it's crazy, but that's the
Yeah.
norm. And you kind of had a different experience. But I love what you said. And I totally agree. We can learn from everybody, but there are those different relationships and experiences. And I encourage staffs. Like, I think it's important to have male and female on your staffs, whether it's, a male team or a female team, that doesn't really matter to me, but those experiences are very unique. But I saw that and I'm like, man, that's just, you don't hear that a lot. So I appreciate you sharing that and kind of what that was for you.
I mean, I've coached adult men too, by the way, and like that was an amazing
Awesome.
experience. So it's I think for them to have a female coach too was they had never had a woman coach that team before, and so that was a pretty special experience too.
Yeah, it's super cool.
No, definitely. I mean, a couple things stand out to me. One is that you guys basically did the haka, instead of that, it was Tai Chi, and so that's basically intimidating because they're like, "What is going on?" Right? I tried to get my team to do their own version of the haka this year, and they didn't take me up on it. But the other thing is, I will say, as a male coach of high school girls, I have 3 girls myself. When my girls talk to me about their female issues, that's a very different conversation than if our, one of our players told us this year, I can't make it to practice because of, one of those issues. And it was not, it's like, okay, that was a little TMI, for us to know, but for a female coach who I think is more appropriate for that. We actually always have a female coach on our staff if we can help it because of those reasons, right? Because most females will not feel comfortable with those types of conversations with their male coach. And male coaches usually don't feel comfortable with those either with young women who are not their children, right? Especially in today's day and age where it's just you got to be careful, right? In a lot of these relationships for obvious reasons. So anyway, that's something that I think is important to just touch on there.
Well, we're learning a lot. I think for so long, the science of soccer, the science of sport has focused on the study of men and men's bodies. I mean, cleats are built for a man's foot, whereas a woman's anatomy and our body is built different. We're bigger, our hips are heavier, or we have a narrower, heel in a boot, right? So like even equipment has just we have this old adage, like shrink it and pink it, right? That was through time. But today we're actually starting to see research into women in particular. So, if we even take the topic that we're on, we're actually learning a lot about the menstruation cycle of girls and women and how it affects their performance. Mm-hmm. And so what periods, like throughout your menstruation as a woman, and not to make anyone uncomfortable talking about this.
No. This is
we understand the science of a woman's body and the impact of that on her performance. We can then change things like, when does she eat more protein? When does she need to get folate or vitamin B or other nutrients into her body, because she might be losing them like throughout her cycle, and that's going to enhance her performance. So once we can move it out of a realm of a taboo topic to talk about and actually understand that women's science is equally as important as men's science, it just hasn't been studied or talked about as much. Yep. We'll collectively increase and enhance the performance of women and give them the freedom and autonomy to be professionals and elite players. I say pros, but I mean like the ability to compete at their highest level, whatever they choose to pursue, because we acknowledge and accept that their bodies are normal and we can talk about those things. So, totally. I mean, I'm excited that we've brought this up as a topic because I'm quite passionate about it. We're starting to see it just kind of enter the industry, especially at the professional levels. There are some clubs, there's some research being done around whether it's ACL injuries in women, which we see at a more high frequency than men, whether it's, that topic of menstruation, mental health, certain things that just have never been studied exclusively around girls and women. So it's an exciting time in the game that we're actually having these conversations.
Yeah, it's super important.
I don't want to breeze by it because I'm as excited about it to talk about it as you are. My last 5 or 6 years at Baylor, something that I would work with our strength coaches and our ATCs and our doctors to try to look into more of those things, because there's a lot of new research, but not enough of stable research yet. So we were trying to help kind of be guinea pigs a little bit with just like, hey, what information can we provide? Because we felt like that was that is an area where we can get better to help our female athletes be successful, on and off the field, because you talk about mental and all those things too. And you're right, it can't be taboo. We've got to be able to talk about it. We've got to be able to, as male coaches, be comfortable in those environments. And I guess maybe I was in the women's game long enough that it really didn't bother me anymore to say, it's normal, and whatnot. So I think there's a whole nother conversation on that another time, but that research is very, very intriguing to me, especially the relationship to the menstrual cycle and the possible ACL injuries. That's something that was very, very interesting to us, that we paid a lot of attention to in our training regimen, as to, you have your normal training regimens up and down based on games, but also like what individuals do need based on their menstrual cycle too, is really, really intriguing to me.
Yeah, and I would say on that too is all that you said. Yes, for sure. We need to normalize it. We need to make sure that it's something that is talked about, because it should be talked about just as easily as girls have struggled turning their hips as fast as a male. So you got to round it a little more, to be able to make that cross versus just, doing it. Like, it should be as normal as that, right? Like, that's something we talk about. It's not a big deal. But I think you got to earn the conversation too as a coach. You can't just come straight into that, because I think it would be uncomfortable, especially for some of the girls. I know, talking to my girls at home, just certain men can say things to them and it's fine. Others, they'd be weird. And it would be, okay, that's not appropriate. And so you got to earn that conversation. I think you need to set it up as, this is something that we're going to talk about. And this is something, and here's why we're going to talk about it. It's not a weird thing. It's something that's a natural thing. It's something that's just biological. And it's something that if we can master it as a team, and we can say, this is important to do, and we want to prevent injuries in you. We want to be able to have you perform at your highest level and for you to flourish. And part of your flourishing is for us to understand that. And so if you don't feel comfortable talking to me, we have this coach here who you can talk to about it. But we need to know this information so we can help you perform at your best. And I think if we do stuff like that in our teams, like set it up at the beginning that way, we can be able to, have these conversations in a real way. But today's day and age, I think male coaches, a lot of times I talk to different male coaches that are afraid to say anything because of, they could get in trouble, or the girl could take it the wrong way, or they could say it in a way that wasn't quite appropriate. And so to have more education on it and to have more conversations, to be able to have, like, Paul, I know at Baylor, you had the different coaches that were connected with the different players because that was the better fit for them. And to be able to study our players that way, I think is huge. So anyway, that's something that I've seen, especially at the high school level, and having 3 daughters myself who tell me a lot of those things.
Well, if we can root it in facts, not feelings,
I
think we're going to be more successful having those conversations. So, in a podcast about how, leadership in soccer, my thought on this is it's really about rooting it in the data and the insights and the facts, and removing like the feeling from it, because it is a fact of life that women have a different body than men, that girls go through different developmental processes and cycles. That's a fact. And so if we can root it in that and take time to learn the facts and take the responsibility as a coach of female athletes, whether you're a man or a woman, or identify one way or another, that's not what it's about. It's about our responsibility as coaches, as leaders, to understand the people that we're influencing and impacting, and what's their reality, what are the facts. And then once we take that responsibility ourselves, we can then help them achieve, because it's not about us, it's about them.
Yep. 100%. And I think if they see that and they know that, then that absolutely will shine through. And I think that starts with the coaches really studying it, understanding it, and being able to speak that into the players.
And there are women coaches who are uncomfortable talking about that stuff too.
Sure. For sure.
But it's not a gender issue. It's a knowledge.
That's a good point.
It's a knowledge and experience. Yeah.
It's a very good point. I know my wife is she didn't necessarily, her mom didn't speak to her that way, didn't talk to her about that stuff. So for her, it was a learned experience to be able to do that as well. So
yeah, and that's a big responsibility to put on a woman on your staff, to say, oh, well, you're a woman, so you're the person they all go to talk about this topic. Well, what if that woman's uncomfortable talking about it? That's right. Like that's actually like it could be. It's another dynamic to think about, that just. For women doesn't mean we want to talk about someone's period. Like, it's not.
Right. That's a good point.
It's not how it works.
Yeah.
Like, we have to understand the facts and the data and the insights and the science.
That is a great point. I talk about that in other issues all the time about it's more personality than it is gender, I think, in most things. Certain personalities can talk about anything and everything and it doesn't bother them. Others don't want to talk about anything because it's just weird. And, I think so. And it's not just personalities too. There's no generalization. It also goes to your upbringing, what you talked about, all these different things that go into it. So that's a good word there.
Went down a rabbit hole on this one, guys. Sorry
I love
about
it. Hey,
I really excited you wanted to talk about it.
The rabbit holes are sometimes the best conversations,
That's right.
The unexpected turns and twists that keeps everybody engaged. It's good.
That doesn't surprise me at all, based on the fact that where we met. There's nothing but rabbit holes, and like you said, what we're supposed to talk about, we'll talk about, and it's good stuff. And I think this is a very important issue. I think it's super important, and a lot of stuff most people probably haven't even thought about, and unfortunately. So so we're gonna shift and go into something that a lot of changes. The last few decades in U.S. soccer has been a lot of changes. Good, bad. Some might say ugly, and some might say really good. And so I think there's a lot of those things, and probably fit into all those different categories. And so I want to talk a little bit about your thoughts on that, kind of the highs and the lows, and what the things that you love about current U.S. soccer and would love to change. And I want you to kind of blend it into how you're incorporating that into your leadership at USL and the initiatives that you have there.
There's a lot there, Phil.
I don't make it easy for you. I do not, it's something that, again, more important issues. So let's see what you can do with it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the United States and our vast network of soccer players in this country is unbelievable. I mean, there are 2 million girls playing soccer in America. There's 40,000 college players across all levels, Division I, Division II, 3, NAIA, JUCO, 40,000 women and 300 professional jobs for players. Amplify that out times the number of coaches, the number of referees, the number of front office and staff opportunities. It's amazing in the United States. And I'm really proud to have been a part of that. Especially the growth of it, back in the, Title IX, when Title IX was established in 1972, and it awarded, equal kind of opportunity for women in college athletics. I was certainly a recipient of that. And I think we've seen that really drive a lot of the growth of women's soccer and girls soccer in particular, throughout the years. So for me, just the I don't know, the number of opportunities for girls to play is something that really inspires me, but there's also a challenge. There's a couple challenges with that. I think what we're doing at the USL, kind of dovetailing into how what we're building here is a full pathway from youth to pro with academy and amateur, pre-professional league and a professional league, to solve some of the challenges in the current system for all of those constituents. So, I think if you look in the youth landscape, what we're building on the academy system is for U20 players. There's no age banding in our academies, because if you're good enough, you're old enough within the academy system. And it's really meant for that, 16 to pre-college or pre-professional developmental age, when today a lot of kids sign their college, they're going to go to college at 16, and how the development continues in that period. We want to be able to complement that and create an elite environment for players who want to continue to develop for their college team or for their W League team or for their professional team in the future, so that their development continues as athletes. I hear a lot from college coaches that when they get there at 18, they maybe haven't learned some of the off the field skills or more, well-rounded, I guess, skills you might get in a developmental program, as opposed to play to win or play to be seen program. So that's what Academy kind of fills that space for us in the USL. So you'll see we're launching Academy this year, and you'll see that start to build out across the country to create these regionalized academy systems that also mitigate travel costs and expenses, because they're regional leagues.
Yeah.
So in the college game, which again is amazing, and it's what's really set us apart, not only, here in the US, but around the world. So here is a sport, but around the world in soccer. But what we're seeing in the college game is this gap of development in the summer. They're only playing for a couple months out of the year. Stanford, North Carolina, these top UCLA top teams, they're only getting really training at this high competitive level for a short period of time. So what we're trying to do is create elite league from May to July where that doesn't impact their collegiate eligibility, but has exceptionally high standards so that the players know if they come into the W League in the summer, they're going to continue their development, continue their training, come into preseason ready for those quick 3 months where their coach is expecting them, to compete right off the bat and, pass a beep test or a Cooper test on day one. Well, the summertime is a really important period for them to be ramping up to that level of fitness that their coaches are going to expect early days in college. So we're trying, through that, we want to create an environment, supplement that age, 19 to 23-year-old kind of U23 age group in their annual training and development. And then, of course, I mentioned there's 300 pro jobs today in the United States, but what happens, that number 40,000 getting reduced to 300 is quite a big delta. We know that a lot of college players today who maybe don't make it pro because there's such a small number of players that get drafted today, they either quit or they go abroad. So what we want to do is create what we're doing. The Super League will be a space in the United States where we can retain a lot of that talent from going abroad, or facilitate that journey so that we know if they do want to go abroad, we can ensure that they're going to a place that is best for their development or best, for what they want their future to look like, whether they want to play for the national team, whether they want to live abroad, have different experiences. So we want to be able to help facilitate. And at the same time, create a space. We have a lot of Americans abroad right now, by the way, playing professionally, and we'd love to have the space for them to play here too. So that's kind of to answer your question, Phil, how we see, there's so many opportunities, but there are some gaps. And so the USL has built this full player pathway from youth to pro, but in a way that complements the existing system and creates more opportunities for players, coaches, refs, fans, et cetera, to really engage in women's soccer all along that pathway.
Yeah. And on that, one of the things that we've heard over and over and over again is one of the issues with the system, the current system, is just the pay to play, right? The idea of it's hard. And it costs money to run clubs. It costs money to do this stuff. But as you said, we want to make it more affordable. What is it? What can we do to help those, kind of the vulnerable, the at-risk, the populations that just don't have money? I mean, they just flat out don't have money. Maybe they don't have the opportunity to walk door to door because if they do, it's too dangerous, right? It's just not a good neighborhood. There's no money in their neighborhood. There's no things like that. How can we ensure that everyone who wants to play and or coach has access? I mean, I know that this is one of your heartbeats that I've seen on your website. I've seen in everything you write pretty much, has access and opportunity to do so, and that they can get the training and coaching to fulfill their potential. How can we, what is it that you're doing? What is it that we can do together to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think the most important word in that entire question is we, because there's no one group, organization, or person who can do that alone. I mean, this country is it's hard to get to soccer. It's hard to get to a field, 80 by 120 doesn't exist in the middle of New York City. Right. And it is a real challenge, but I think, whether it's innovations to get players from the city to those environments, maybe there's technology or travel innovations or some way where we can actually physically get them there, or we've got to create spaces within their environments, for them to be able to play, and then encouraging good coaching. That's where the opportunity comes in too, right? It's one thing to give people a field and a ball, but also teaching them those skills. So, it's a real hard, it's not there's no easy solution. Where I do, at the USL, we're really trying to build our academy as that space for players to see what the professional environment is like, to get access to senior team environments so they can assess, if a professional pathway is something that they want to explore, that they want to continue. And those are they're all attached to senior team environments, a W League or Super League teams, so that they can get into those. And we work really closely with the other organizations across the country, whether it's USU Soccer, UCNL, US Club, the Girls Academy, all these organizations, like we're working with them to help facilitate like access to the academy. And you don't have to be an elite level player to get into that and experience that profession, that environment. It's a challenge, and it takes all of us working together to find ways to, create those moments in those spaces, and understanding what are the challenges that they're facing. I mean, I mentioned this one challenge of transportation, right? Okay, so how can we collectively solve that? But there's so many others, and I think they're going to take just step-by-step collaboration and investment in order to do it.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah, no, I think we've got to start wrapping things up here a little bit. But Amanda, I would love to talk to you offline about some of the things you touched on. One of the things I'm doing after getting out of college coaching is kind of going back and working with individual clubs about how to actually prepare those players for college. Because as a college coach, I recognize like, hey, there's a big gap here and there's a way to fill that gap. So I'm trying to go into clubs and help prepare those players for what they're about to expect. So I'd love to share some information, maybe back and forth with some common goals there. I would love to talk about that with you.
That's awesome. Yes, please. That's great.
Awesome.
And two, on that note, Amanda, where can people find more information about all this that we're talking about as far as the different things that USL is doing and be able to connect with you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Well, anyone can connect with me on Twitter. I'm Vandio1 on Twitter, so anyone can send me a DM or find me on. I would have said Clubhouse, but but no, I'm trying to be as accessible as possible. But so we just published Step Up, which is the women's soccer strategy at the USL. I kind of took it from my time living in Europe. I really saw like FIFA publish a women's soccer strategy, UEFA, the English League. Like you see that a lot of organizations put out like, okay, what is your strategy? So we did that work internally and wanted to put it out there so people understood the pathway we're building. Like, how does Academy connect to W? How does it connect to Super League? And so you can go read all about that at uslsoccer.com/step-up. Step Up and download. It's like maybe 15 pages with lots of pictures and lots of graphs, but it really describes what we're building. So on this podcast, we just talked a little bit about what the problem is. Step Up is the USL's solution for that, where we believe our part to play is in that, knowing that the entire soccer community needs to come together collectively to help the United States continue to achieve in women's soccer, into the future. So yeah, uslsoccer.com//step-up, or on Twitter, USL Super League on Twitter, USL W League, or of course my personal is at Vandio1, and it's all there in the bio.
Yeah, and we'll have that in the show notes too. So definitely check all that out, and no doubt, if you are a part of that solution, we need to work together. I mean, I'm a collaborator, connector, collaboration hub, love to do all that, and I know you are a collaborator as well, and so it's something that we need to get the people together who want to work together, can work together. We need to work together to be able to do this, so I 100% agree with that.
Love that.
Yeah. And as my good friend Phil always says, all good things must come to an end. And so we're kind of wrapping things up here. Always in with two questions with all of our guests. We'd love to ask you the same. How do you use the lessons you've learned directly from the game of soccer in your personal relationships outside the game?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that I even live outside the game. My game is
that might be the best
relationship outside of soccer. I don't even think I can count those on one hand.
That's awesome. That's a great answer in itself, that like you're just in the game. You're never outside of the game. So
soccer lifer. Let's go.
Love it. Well, I'm going to take that as an answer because I think that must be the best answer we've ever had. So I'm going to move on to the second question.
Hey, careful, Paul. Now everyone's going to answer that way, and we're not going to have any other answers. So I don't know.
We're not going to let anybody else answer that way. Though. It's already been taken.
Yeah.
I stole everyone's injury answer earlier. So at least I got one unique one here.
There you go. Amanda, what have you watched, read, or listened to that has most impacted your thinking on how soccer explains life and leadership? What are you watching, reading, or listening to, or have?
Because I'm such a
It's
nerd, I
impactful.
read all the reports. Like I read like the FIFA report, the UEFA reports, the technical reports. Like I consume industry reports. it's
It's awesome.
it's the least sexy answer I could possibly give you, but it's the truth. And Twitter. Honestly, I genuinely love listening to people like who have different opinions than me. Sometimes they're hard but to hear, but I think that they're important because I think listening is a critical component, and active listening is something that we as leaders need to take seriously, that you don't always have to be doing. A lot of what we need to be doing is listening.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's
It's great.
That is such great leadership advice right there. One of the things that I said, somebody asked me that once, like, what's the one thing that you could tell a leader to do that would be help them grow in their leadership the most? And one of the things that I said was to purposefully listen and read people that you know will disagree with you, because it helps you strengthen your convictions, and it might teach you something and help you understand that I got it wrong. And that's leadership, is to realize when you got it wrong, admit it, and be able to make the change. And so, yeah, I love that, to be able to listen to that. Now, I also want to have the caveat that sometimes on social media we get people that are not necessarily things we want to learn from, because they're just mad at each other and just yelling. But there's a lot of really good stuff in there too. As we talk about, everything has its shadow. So I very much appreciate that. Appreciate you, Amanda, all that you're doing. Thank you for taking the time to be part of the conversation. Very grateful that we have been connected, and we'll continue to hopefully work together to do good in the world of soccer.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this, and thanks for all you guys are doing. This is it's awesome, and I'm just pleased to be part of it. Thank you.
Well, great. Well, thank you, folks, for being a part of this, and thank you for just all that you're doing out there in the world of soccer to help make things better. And I hope that you do take Amanda up on it. And if you have ideas in this, if you have ways that we can make this better, let us know here at How Soccer Explains Leadership. Connect with Amanda. We'll have all of her contact info in the show notes, along with anything else that was referenced in this episode. I don't know if I'll put all the different reports in there, but we will have a link to FIFA or something that will get you to some of them, at least a good start, if you want to geek out on that stuff too. So we also will be able to connect you with Paul and Marcy at warriorwaysoccer.com to learn all that they're doing there. Coachingthebiggergame.com. Again, you can check out that link at the show notes to find out what I'm doing with Christian DeVries to help you and your coaching staff be able to help your self-leadership, leading your individuals, and leading your team. With all of that, we hope that you're taking all that you're learning from this show to help you be a better leader in all you do, to be a better coach, better parent, better spouse, and just a better friend, and that you'll continually remind yourself that soccer does explain life and leadership. Thanks a lot. Great couple weeks.